TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
It's the final countdown. Week 18 in the NFL is coming up, and we are ready to go. It's Mazzi and it's Live Zone rocking with you on the extra point this week. What's up, Live Zone? How you doing?
We got a lot to talk about coming up in this next coming week. A lot of NFL things happening right now as we're speaking. Let's just get right into it.
We got 5 topics as usual. We're starting off in probably the most interesting game of the season. 14-2 teams battling it out for the division lead, for the playoff hopes, for home field throughout it. The Vikings and the Detroit Lions. Yes, the Vikings and the Detroit Lions. 2 teams that at the beginning of the year, we might have had the Lions there, but I don't think anybody had the Vikings here at 14-2 battling the Lions for the division or the top seed in the NFC. It's going to be a hell of a game that we got going down. Now, Detroit has their injuries and problems in their secondary. Vikings have a late injury this week at practice that might affect them going forward. Aaron Jones, questionable for Sunday's game, could be a big impact for the Vikings. Live Zone, what do you see going down in this matchup, and who do you see taking the division and getting home field advantage throughout the playoffs?
I see the Detroit Lions. I think that the Detroit Lions are in a class of their own right now. I think that they are the team to beat in the NFL, period. I'm not just talking about NFC. I'm talking about both NFC and AFC. The way that they produce offense, even though they have injuries on the field right now, like they don't have David Montgomery, they don't have Hutchinson on the defensive side, they still find ways to score and score at ease. So for me, I'm gonna take the Detroit Lions. I think it's a no-brainer call here. However, we have seen the Minnesota Vikings become this very big powerhouse in the NFC. So I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota sneaks by and says, "Oh, hey, we're taking that first seed with us."
I don't know about that one. I think it's going to be a lot tougher for Minnesota than we think it's going to be. Okay, we still haven't seen, besides a 2-game stretch where Arizona went 0-2 in those games, one of those games being against the Detroit Lions. So we haven't seen Minnesota really have a bad game. Okay, they played Detroit tough at home when Detroit came on the road. Now they're going to Detroit to play Detroit at home. Even tougher test. They only lost by 2 when they were at home, but we haven't seen a game from Sam Darnold where he really looked bad this year, and I'm still waiting for it. I know it's in the chamber. It's like a Russian roulette revolver. You spin it around and you got the one shot in there. You just don't know when it's going to come. You pull the trigger and you hope. So that's kind of what I'm looking at with Sam Darnold these days. The man is balling, respect where respect is due, but I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting for the downfall. It has not come. I'm a betting man, so I'm going to play the odds and put down that it comes this week on the road in Detroit for the number 1 seed, lays an egg, and Detroit wins this game by 2 touchdowns at home, Ford Field, and locks up home field advantage throughout the playoffs. I think the Aaron Jones situation is a little more of something that we're not talking about. It's a calf injury. I don't think he's going to be ready to go on Sunday because I think they're going to play the long game with it. They'd rather have him rest for a playoff, whether it's a week off or they're playing first round, but they'd rather be having him in the playoffs than playing him injured and not having him through the playoffs. That would be my idea for that. So it's going to be on Sam Darnold and the one-man show of airing it out to Justin Jefferson, and whoever else happens to be down there for him, Addison as well. And the Detroit Lions secondary, I mean, we saw Brock Purdy just look like a primetime Tom Brady tearing him up on Sunday night, or Monday night. So throwing for 3 touchdowns, I believe, in that game himself, and was torching them, a lot closer game than we thought. So the Detroit secondary is struggling and hurting and can give up some points. You have over throughout the year, though, if you average it out, Detroit's only given up about 26 points per game. They're scoring about 34. Vikings, on the other hand, scoring 26 and giving up about 20. So I like the odds of Detroit. They put up more points. And the Vikings don't even usually score their threshold of points. So it's going to be a fun game, very fun. But the matchup to look out for is Sam Darnold and the wide receiving core for the Minnesota Vikings, and how they're going to attack the secondary for the Detroit Lions. If that is on point, this is going to be a shootout. If that is not on point, this is going to be a blowout. And that's pretty much what we're getting here.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with everything you're saying, except for one thing. I really think that something that you didn't mention, and I think this is going to be the biggest part of the Detroit Lions scoring the ball, is how many touchdowns are we going to see from Jamar Gibbs? Because Jamar Gibbs has been going crazy the last few weeks now that David Montgomery is not there, really looking like that number one running back. Like, we thought that we saw two number one running backs on the same team, but did this put Jamar Gibbs ahead of David Montgomery now? Are we seeing a primetime Jamar Gibbs at the moment on the Detroit Lions? How many receiving yards are we going to see from him? How many rushing yards are we going to see from him? It really all just depends on how the offense on Detroit plays, because yes, once again, they give up a lot of points, but Detroit's offense is built to go out and give you 50 points a game. So for that reason, I 110% agree that we both agree that the Detroit Lions are going to win. How are they going to win, though? Is it going to be because of a close game with their defense showing up, or is it going to be, all right, well, this offense needs to improve?
It's definitely not going to be the defense. It's definitely going to be the offense, the distribution of the ball and the scoring. Just like the San Fran game, Amon-Ra had a touchdown. Williams had a touchdown. Sam Laporta had a touchdown. Jamar Gibbs had a touchdown. It was a wealth, spreading it all around, spreading the ball everywhere. I want to touch on, do I think Jamar Gibbs is overtaking David Montgomery? I just think the way David Montgomery is the number one back in the league. He runs downhill fast, and even if he's hit at the line of scrimmage, he's falling forward for 4 or 5 yards. He's always falling
110%.
forward. He's a Josh Jacobs type
Yeah.
back, and I love it. Now,
Yeah.
Jamar Gibbs, shifty, out of the backfield, can make people move, doesn't run downhill as much, waits for his spot, takes his time, and explodes out of it. So that's why I like the dynamic of David Montgomery being first and Jamar Gibbs coming in second, because you got the guy who's going to tire the defense, and then the shifty guy comes in and they don't have an answer for either of that. Not
Yeah.
saying Jamar Gibbs can't be a number one back on any other team in the league. For sure he can be. I'm just saying you have David Montgomery in the locker room fully healthy and Jamar Gibbs. I'm starting David so he can get us going with 5 yards, and then Jamar bring it home with the 20-yard run that opened up from that, because they're scared of the pass option as well.
Yeah.
So
I,
um,
I'm
I
I'm with
think
you.
I think
I'm
it's
with you.
coming down to offense all day, though. Sorry.
Yeah, 110%. I'm with you on the David Montgomery thing. I'm personally, David Montgomery is my favorite running back in the league. I think that David Montgomery is the most beneficial running back in the league, the same way that we look at Mike Evans as the most beneficial wide receiver. It's all reliable. I think we're going to start seeing that from David Montgomery. Now, when you look at the Lions offense, though, you have 110% in my eyes. You have one of, if not the best running back in the league, in David Montgomery, and then you have one of the best elusive backs in Jamar Gibbs, which is why this offense is so firepowered and built up. So now Jamar Gibbs is bringing that elusiveness, something that people are not seeing on tape, that he's going to get all the touches because David Montgomery's not there. And then Sam Laporte is wide open on the route. You know what I mean? So it makes a lot of sense. Either way, both ways, we have Detroit winning. I don't see Minnesota Vikings winning this game. It could happen. It really just depends on how Detroit's offense wants to play. But I would say that Detroit's going to take it.
It should be Detroit. I think 2 touchdowns is what it's going to be from my end. It's going to be a great game. And they made it the last game of the season completely. Sunday Night Football. It's going to be a great, great, great way to end the regular season. Looking forward to the playoffs. Shout out both these teams and shout out that whole division, honestly. Really running things in the league. AFC has a couple chances to have people sneak into the playoffs, and the NFC has some Cinderella teams, it looks like. Who can make a run in this playoffs? We know we have the juggernauts in the Chiefs. We know we have a wannabe juggernaut in the Buffalo Bills. We know we have a possible juggernaut in the Baltimore Ravens. Over to the NFC, we have a powerhouse of an offense in the Detroit Lions. We have a complete package team in the Philadelphia Eagles, and we have some teams that want to make a name for themselves in the playoffs as well. So Live Zone. The playoff field is almost set. The reason I brought up the AFC playoff picture is that last spot is still up for grabs. Now, say we started where we're at today and the Denver Broncos made it into the playoffs, or maybe somebody else snuck into the playoffs. You could choose who you want if one of those teams are for you, but who can make a run and maybe dethrone these Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens, Detroit Lions, and Philadelphia Eagles that seem like they're pretty much the 4 or 5 teams that are already penciled into those conference championship games?
Now, if I'm looking at it based off of the beginning of the season, I would have told you that it's the Buccaneers. I think that the Buccaneers could have made a run if they had all the pieces on their team. But because they don't, they really have fallen from that for me. They're still a great team. They're still going to do some damage in the playoffs. I just don't think that they're going to beat a team like the Detroit Lions or Philadelphia Eagles. So the team that I'm looking at is the Green Bay Packers. I know you're going to look at me like I'm crazy for that, but the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love, we've seen him get it done throughout last playoffs last year. And he almost made that Cinderella story, made a bad pick at the end that he needed to get a touchdown on. I'm looking at how he improves from that from last year. So for me, I'm going with Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. I really think if you don't see Detroit in the Super Bowl, I have a feeling, a sneaky suspicion that you're going to see a New York Giants run from the Green Bay Packers this season.
Hey, I don't hate the pick at all. I love the way Josh Jacobs is playing. Jordan Love looks like, honestly, one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. If I had to pick one of these young quarterbacks that hasn't been in the league for more than 4 years, I might be rocking with Jordan Love on tops of that list. So I genuinely, and I love the coaching job that's out there. And if they're playing a game at Lambeau in the postseason, it's going to be tough for any team to beat them, though they are the 7th seed, so that doesn't seem like it's going to happen at all right now. If you didn't go with Green Bay, I was going to go with Green Bay. But because we like to keep it different on this show, I'm going to go over to the AFC, and I'm going to – you're with the NFC. I'm going over to the AFC, and honestly, I'm doing a crazy one that might even tie into the next playoff spot, but I'm thinking these Cincinnati Bengals might sneak into the playoffs here and pose a large threat to whoever they're going on the road and playing against. Okay. I'm making a hypothetical here. We're saying, what if the Cincinnati Bengals make the playoffs? Who do they play first round? Oh, that's the Buffalo Bills. Do you think the Buffalo Bills want to see the Cincinnati Bengals in the first round of their playoff run? No, they do not. On the road, it doesn't matter. It's Joe Burrow. He can put up the points and stay with Josh Allen. He has more weapons on offense than Josh Allen in all aspects. The defense for Cincinnati leaves something to be desired. The Buffalo defense a little better at locking down, but all in all, again, I see it being a shootout 28-24, 31-28 game if that goes down. And then you look from there, anybody that Cleveland matches up against, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Texans, I think they have a chance to beat the Ravens. I think they have a chance to beat the Chiefs. I think they have a chance to beat, it's really a team that could sneak in and do some damage if they can get some help, have Denver lose, have Miami lose, and and Cincinnati beat Pittsburgh. Watch out for the Bengals if they can make the playoffs. Now, that's a hypothetical, so I'm looking at the real deal right now. And if I had to look at another team, it's going to be in the NFC. It's going to be the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels has some magic cooking this year. I don't know what it is. He's thrown about 3 or 4 game winners that I've seen in the final seconds in games where they should have had no business being in it at the start of the fourth quarter. They were out of it. So Washington Commanders, they have a defense that can hold a team like the Eagles down when they need to. They have a defense that can hold a lot of different teams down. And I think they match up well against a lot of these teams. It's just about the offense for Washington when it comes down to these teams like Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota. Can they put up enough points to beat them? I think their defense can keep them within range in the 20s, but can Washington put up 20 points and not wait till the fourth quarter and score all 20 of their points right before the game ends? That's the main thing. But watch out for Washington as well. They're going up against the Rams in the first round as it stands right now, which could be a sneaky game.
Either way, that could go. That could be a sneaky game because if people forget that Matthew Stafford is a Super Bowl winner now, so that's another team that you might have to watch out for, especially with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp both there. I mean, I don't know.
But Cooper Kupp in the last 3 games has been absentee. Yes, he has been absent.
110. But in crucial games like this in the playoffs, he could show up big. Cooper Kupp is a Super Bowl champion. He knows how to get it done. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't be surprised if if I didn't go with Green Bay, the Rams were going to be my next pick. So, but another team that you have to watch out for that could be very deadly that nobody's really talking about right now is the LA Chargers. I mean, the LA Chargers. I know what you're saying, but I know what you're saying based off of their offense. But if their defense can keep them in the game, that could be like a New England Patriots defense that wins them games. So, I mean, I don't know. With Harborough there and with Herbert there, I would take my chances on them making a run if I had to look at it.
Here's my issue with the LA Chargers, okay? I love Justin Herbert and how he gunslangs it, but his time management and clock management and when he needs to make a certain play or run a little more clock out so they ensure the win and don't leave any time for the other team to come back or anything. That's the Chargers' woes. It's much like Chicago Bears' woes and Dallas Cowboys' woes. They always end up losing these important games, close games, because something crazy happens. They misjudge something. They don't get a call the right way. And it's nothing about the play. It's it's not the play of the players or the team. It's literally down to that one call. Again, we can look at it and every call is a big call if you chop it down to this, and every play is a big play if you chop it down, blah, blah, blah. But it seems the Chargers just find ways to lose. They're one of those teams that find ways to lose. And I'm not going to bet on the team that I think has the worst karma and the curse against them. That would be the LA Chargers. And again, I'm just not impressed with Justin Herbert in big moments. I'm impressed with Justin Herbert as a quarterback in this league and what he does and how he slangs it and his completion percentage, his deep pass, his accuracy, all that. I'm not impressed by him in big moments whatsoever. Maybe John Harbaugh can change that, but they didn't show up in the Ravens game. They didn't show up in a lot. they just don't get it done. Even the Chiefs game, they should have won the Chiefs game. They still ended up losing the Chiefs game.
Yep.
Okay, and if you look at the Chargers, they beat the bad teams. I think they're like 6-0 against teams with the losing record this year, or 7-0 with teams with the losing record. And I think they've beaten one or two teams with the winning record all year. So the games that matter, they lose. The games that don't matter, they win. That's not a formula that works come playoff time, and I don't think they magically going to get the answers overnight.
110%, but in the future, I would be worried about them because they're a very young receiver core. Like I said, if you asked me at the beginning of the year, would the Chargers be 10-6 right now? I would have been like, absolutely not. They're bottom of the barrel right now because they just lost Keenan Allen. Their defense is getting older. They just lost Mike Williams. Like their team, they just lost Austin Eckler. They don't have anybody from their team from before. And then after that, they revamp, get Harbaugh, and they win 10 games. And it's like, all right, well, we're here. We're back in the playoffs. So it could happen. It could happen. But I understand where you're coming from. I would, if I was you guys, and if you were trying to pick a winner based off of what they've done and could make a run in the playoffs, the easiest team to do that in my eyes is the Green Bay Packers.
Absolutely. We got sponsors. We got Steaks and Seafood from Atlanta. Steaks and Seafood. They're checking in with us, saying what's up. Check them out real quick.
Oh.
We are back with stats, facts, so fast that it'll give you an asthma attack. It's Live Zone, it's Mazzi, and we're talking AFC. There's one more spot up for grabs in the AFC that's not locked down, and that would be the Broncos slot at number 7. The Dolphins, the Bengals, and the Broncos all in it for the number 7 slot. Broncos, if they win, they're in. Broncos, if they lose, that's where the fun begins. Okay, if the Broncos lose and Miami wins, Miami Dolphins make the playoffs. Okay, wow. All right. If Miami loses and Denver loses and Cincinnati wins, the Cincinnati Bengals are in the playoffs. Yes, in the playoffs after a horrific start. I mean, there's a bunch of different scenarios. If everybody loses, Denver makes it. If two teams lose and Miami wins, Miami makes it. If the two teams on the other side lose and Denver loses too, I mean, there's a bunch of different scenarios. Okay, Live Zone. Who you got taking the final slot and why?
I'm taking Denver. I think Sean Payton has done an amazing job with Bo Nix. I think that Bo Nix has fit into their system very well. I think that they're a young, up and coming team that nobody's looking out for. Maybe I personally think that we're going to see a huge game from Cortland Sutton that we haven't seen in a few weeks. And I think that we're going to see Denver's defense lock it down here in this next coming game. I'm pretty sure they're going against the Chiefs, correct? Which last game that they went against the Chiefs, they only lost by 2 points, 16-14. So if they stop that safety from happening, I mean, or two extra point conversions, whatever it was that made them get 16 points, the Denver Broncos could win that game. So I'm looking at this game. I'm saying Denver splits it with Kansas City. I think that they're going to win this game. And I think we're going to see Bo Nix in the playoffs after everybody said that it was a bad decision to draft him.
Interesting. The only team that controls their own destiny in this hunt, I see why you're going with the Broncos. We'll touch base later as to why I think the Chiefs will ultimately beat the Denver Broncos because it's in their best interest to do so. Listen, great season by the Broncos. I think they lose this game against the Chiefs. That's just my thoughts. Then it comes down to who's going to get it done. And you look at the Dolphins are going against the Jets. Does Aaron Rodgers want to play spoiler or not? Then you have the Bengals going against the struggling Pittsburgh Steelers, but Pittsburgh is playing for a division. If you look at this logically, the smart choice in my eyes with Denver losing and Pittsburgh vying for the division having to win, Cincinnati having to win, that's going to be a hell of a game. But I don't know, that one's too close to call. I like Miami just beating the New York Jets and Denver losing and having the Miami Dolphins make it into the playoffs somehow. That seems like nobody's talking about it. So it seems like that's probably what's going to happen. Everybody's saying Broncos or Bengals, and nobody is saying the Miami Dolphins. I think it might just work out perfectly for the Miami Dolphins. They get a win, they get it done. They're in the playoffs.
I highly disagree with you. There's a reason why nobody's talking about that, and that's because Tua cannot play in this time of weather in January. And we're going to see a lot of problems on their offensive side for the Miami Dolphins like we see every year come December. It is what it is. You can't throw down the field come December for some odd reason. And I think it's because when you're in Miami, you're never in bad weather like that, bad conditioning like that. So I mean, I don't know. If we do see Miami make it into the playoffs, I think they lose first round without a shout and a doubt. I would bet my money on that. I would probably bet $100 on that. But I would say that I could see why you went with if you would go with the Bengals because, like we were talking about on the Live 5 a few weeks ago, I'm pretty sure he's over 4,000 yards now and 40 touchdowns for Joe Burrow. I understand why you go with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is putting up one of those career type seasons. I just can't. I can't see Tua getting it done. I can't see him. I can't see him going into the last game of the season and being like, yeah, we're gonna make the playoffs, and then I don't even want to see it because I already know the outcome of the next week when they go into the playoffs. So for me, I'm looking at the other two teams, but I mean, I guess there's a reason
Hey,
for it.
the Bengals have the hardest path, and I'd love for the Bengals to make it, but they
110%.
need to win. Miami needs to lose and Denver needs to lose. That's a lot
Yep.
that's not in their control. Miami just needs Denver to lose. Think Kansas City beats them, and then it's just in Miami's control. The Jets have put up a total of 23 points in the past two games, meaning all Miami needs to do right now on this trajectory is score 13 points or more in the game, and they have a chance to win the game. Aaron Rodgers was down 40-0 last week against the Buffalo Bills, as was benched for Tyrod Taylor. Okay, he might not even play in this game. It might be Tyrod Taylor against Miami, and that might even be. I think it's going to be a trash game, like 20 to 15, 16, 14, whatever you want to do it. But I think Miami pulls it out. Yes, Miami notorious for bad playing terrible in the cold. But if I had to pick it one time, this might be the one time they get it done.
I mean, we shall see what happens. I don't know. That's surprising that you went with the Miami Dolphins because you're usually against them. All right, so
It was a
who do you
last
think?
second switch.
Yeah. So who you think is
It was an audible.
who you think is going to be the big player that comes out on top for Miami to get the job done? You think it's going to be
A-Can.
you think it's going to be A-Chain?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I see it being I I don't know. I see it being like a 10-16 game, and I see that I think that the Jets are going to win. I don't know. I'm looking at Denver. I hope Denver gets it. I think Bo Nix deserves it after this season, in my own opinion. And it would be nice to see another young quarterback get into the playoffs. But there's a lot to come. We shall see what happens on Sunday. And
One more week. We got it. locked in. We're ready to watch. We have a record watch on the weekend as well with Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles. Should Saquon go for this record, CJ? Should the Eagles put everything in on it and just say, listen, we're going to rush the ball 50 times until he gets the record because this game doesn't matter and we're playing the worst rushing defense in the league?
I 110% would. I mean, you have the best running back in the league, one of the guys that, could even get to that record in the first place. So yeah, 110%. If it's in the cards, bring it to them. And with how they're going against one of the worst run defenses in the league, they're already in the playoffs, they're already in a top 2 spot in the NFC. Why not give the ball to him and see what he can do? Yes, there is that little chance that he gets hurt for the playoffs, but I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that Saquon has been on a tear this season, and if it's anybody that deserves that record, it's Saquon Barkley.
I'm 60-40 on it. I want him to go for the record because it's a record that stood for 40 years, and to be even in this conversation, to try and break it, and probably with the best chance to break it that we've seen in the last 40 years, I think he should definitely get a shot to break it. But there's that back of my mind where if he gets injured, this Philadelphia Eagles championship run is sealed and done if Saquon Barkley goes down for any reason whatsoever. I think it's sealed and done if he does. And do you want to risk it against the team that he just left that doesn't want to be embarrassed and have the record be broken on their field against them? They're going to try everything in their power to stop him. They don't care about his health going into the playoffs. It's 60-40 for me. I really want to say just go and do it, and there's no risk, but that risk of him going down at all would completely change the hopes and dreams of the Eagles reaching the Super Bowl again. So it's iffy, but I say end of the day, I say go for it.
Now, can I know how many yards he needs to
101.
110% go for it, dude. 110%. He's been getting at least 100 yards in the last 5 games. I mean, he could easily get that right in the first half if you give him the ball 10 to 15 times in the first half. And then after that, rest him for the second half, and you have him for the first round of the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying, but I'm just saying, any play you can get hurt. I mean, it's like saying you walk outside, you could die. You know what I'm saying? But
it's risky, but in the modern day NFL that we are in now, we have to remember that it's not the 90s and the early 2000s. They're not headhunting. They're not out to hurt people. If somebody gets hurt, there's a flag thrown and fines and everything like that. I say go for it in this generation of the NFL. Now, if we were talking about Ray Lewis generation, I would be like, all right, well, maybe let's not. But
now,
in today's game, I would.
Let's say he has 25 yards at halftime and he's carried the ball 20 times. Are you still letting him press the record in the second half?
110%.
So what's the max amount of carries you're giving the guy in the game? Are you giving him as many carries until he breaks it, or are you setting a cap?
Get him there. That's the goal. That's the offensive plan. The offensive plan is to get him there. You're going against a New York Giants team that can't score over 25 points a game. Get him the ball. Get him in the end zone. Get him the yards that he needs. Get him to that record. That is the offensive plan for the Philadelphia Eagles this week and against the New York Giants.
Well, our plan is to hop over to Viva, let them tell you about their new seltzers and what's going on. So let's get it over to them, and then we'll be right back to finish up the show.
Jared, hey, we're going to need you to tone it down with the Summer Friday thing, okay?
What are you talking about?
Well, for one, it's not summer anymore.
Oh, really?
Coconut. Also, who is this?
I'm the caddy.
Oh, he's my intern.
Sorry, intern. I'm his intern.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
No golfing in the office, okay? Summer Fridays are over. You can keep the Hawaiian shirt, but the rest of this stuff, all right? Are you grilling?
Oh, yeah. Did you want a burger or a hot dog?
No, grilling in the office.
That's a good point. We should take this outside.
No, that don't. You put that right back down.
Yo, it's all in the hips.
Oh, dude, come on, we gotta go. Let's go.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoe. We're rocking here with you. It's Live Zone and Mazzi. It's back on the extra point. We got one more topic to talk about, and that's the Chiefs' strategy going into this final game, all right? I wanted to bring this up because I was going through some scenarios in my mind of what they'd like to do more, okay? Let's see. What's the only team that the Chiefs have lost to this year, and that's the Buffalo Bills, okay? So, Josh Allen notoriously in the playoffs can't beat Patrick Mahomes. We all know that. So something's bound to break in that matchup. Would the Chiefs rather have a Denver Broncos playing the Buffalo Bills, or would they rather have the likes of possibly a Cincinnati playing the Buffalo Bills in the first round of the playoffs?
That's a very hard scenario. I personally think that you go with the team that you're going to beat down the most, right? So, I mean, in my eyes, I would go with the Broncos in this situation, because if you know you can beat them down and they have a chance to go against the Buffalo Bills and win, maybe you go with that, especially where Tyreek Hill is on that other side, on that Miami side, and you really don't want your defense to go against him, because that defense is, well, the secondary is not as great as it used to be. So for me, either way, I mean, the Chiefs are looking good. Either way, in my eyes, we need Patrick Mahomes to be ready. He's about to have a kid. He needs that first week bye so they can have that baby. He's going to have that baby, and then the second week in the playoffs is when they're going to have, their first game in the playoffs. So for me, it's really just comes down to, is Patrick Mahomes ready or not? And if he's not, then either way, they're in trouble. But if he is ready, and if he's ready to go like a Brady type or Patrick Mahomes type that we've seen in the past, I mean, the league's going to be in trouble.
Well, see, this is the scenario I'm posing. You look at Denver, right? Denver matching up against Buffalo is not really that much of a matchup in my eyes with an MVP Josh Allen caliber. And look at it this way. If Cincinnati's going to put up more of a fight, let's look at Cincinnati's road to the postseason. A overtime win against Denver this past week. They're going to have to beat a Pittsburgh Steelers team that's going to be a tough game that they played earlier in the year and was a crazy showdown game. That's two tough games in a row. And then they sneak into the playoffs and they're on a hot streak and they might put something up against Buffalo and maybe take them out. And that's three tough victories in a row. And then boom, they run into the Kansas City Chiefs, and Kansas City's licking their chops after a first round bye, after the Bengals have played three hard fought games in a row and are battered, beaten, and all over the place, is a much, much favorable matchup than against a Broncos team that would be coming off the high of getting in the playoffs on the last week by beating the Chiefs, beating the Buffalo Bills, and then having the confidence to go back to Arrowhead or play the Chiefs again because they're playing in Denver this week, but then go to Arrowhead, play the Chiefs the way they played them earlier in the season, beating them the last week. Boom. They're ready to play the Chiefs. I think the Denver Broncos against the Chiefs is a lot scarier in the playoffs if they can beat in this last round and beat the Bills and end up with the Chiefs. The Denver's a lot scarier to them than Cincinnati or Miami. But we don't think Miami has any chance beating Buffalo. But I think, and then realistically, if you look at it the other way, if Buffalo beats the team, it doesn't really matter, and the Chiefs will ultimately probably end up with a Texans or Chargers, which I think they handle no matter what happens. So I'm really just looking at it from a point of the only chance that they have of being dethroned from there is really Buffalo winning, which most people think is going to happen. But if Denver wins as well, I think they could lose that game as well. So it might be something to look at for the Chiefs to really play all their starters this week in the first half, see if they can get a lead, and then sit them in the second half and try and coast off that lead.
Yeah, 110%. I agree with you. I think either way, the team that the Kansas City Chiefs don't want to see is Miami get through, because that's an easy win for the Buffalo Bills.
Exactly.
The other two teams, yeah, 110%. So I agree with what you're saying, but either way, as long as Miami isn't the team that's getting through, the Buffalo Bills are really going to have a hard time either way. So, but same thing on the Kansas City side. Kansas City doesn't want to see Baltimore or Pittsburgh. They don't want to see those two teams in the first or second round of the playoffs. So for that reason, this whole AFC is a lot more stacked than what we're used to seeing in the AFC. Like, we're used to seeing a Joe Burrow. We're used to seeing Josh Allen. We're used to seeing a Lamar Jackson and a Patrick Mahomes. Now, on top of that, you add a hungry Bo Nix, a hungry CJ Stroud, a Russell Wilson. Like, those teams weren't there before. They weren't problems before. We were worried about the Tennessee Titans that had Derrick Henry on it, and that was the only guy that was really worth a damn on the Tennessee Titans at the time. We weren't worried about all these other teams. So either way, the AFC is going to be really exciting. I think the NFC side is going to be a lot more boring this year, because we look at the Detroit Lions. But the AFC, there's going to be some surprises in that AFC playoff run that we're not even thinking about right now.
Hell, we're just gonna have to wait and see, watch some football, eat some food, chill, laugh, talk about it, vibe with the fam, friends, whatever you got to do. Go to a bar, chill out, just watch the game, dude. All right, that's it. All right, it's Mazzi. You can find me on X, Twitter, Mazzi, Maserati1, Mazzurati1. It's East Coast Sports Investors is everywhere. Okay, you Google it, first thing that pops up. You can plug it. We can get bets for you. There's bet packages if you want. Through Jeff. We're on every sport. We got PGA talks. We got college football talks, football, NBA, MLB, NHL, a little bit of everything. We got live 5 lists coming at you for sports history. We got bets live coming at you. The Oregon bet's not going well. They're getting blown out. But my other 2 from the other week that nobody saw because it didn't go live and I just pressed record. I'm 2-1 on it. So unofficial record because you never seen it. So you might not believe me, but it is what it is. We're here putting out content weekly. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 times a week. We took a little here and there for the holiday. It was a busy time. We apologize for that, but we're back at it, year 10, ready to go. Live Zone, where can they find you?
You can find me on X at real_live zone. You can find me on TikTok at the moment, which is official, it's live_zone_himself. And you can find me on Instagram at official_live zone. You can also find us on East Coast Sports Investors, like Mazzi said. And you can find us pretty much anywhere on this YouTube as well. So we do have a lot of things coming towards you guys. We have merch also in the works. We also have a few interviews that are in the works as well. We're trying very hard to get those. I think there's like 3 or 4 that might be coming our way. So stay tuned on that as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, I'm going to go degenerately bet on Australian basketball.
Ugh.
As always, you guys rocking with us. We appreciate you. Stay tuned.